Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast of brief messages to help humanity bridge the gap to the new earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard. It is my delight to be a scribe for consciousness today, sharing the wisdom that flows through from Source. Here we go. Episode 86. It is Wednesday here in Cincinnati. And right as I sat down to start recording this podcast, the sirens went off, the test systems that they do in the school system around us, and they do it on the first Wednesday of each month. And I didn't realize it was the first Wednesday of November. So it feels super funny to be, I shouldn't say funny. I had to laugh a little bit as I started the podcast and the sirens are going off. I'm like, what is this telling us about the month ahead or the energy of what is going on right now? So I trust it. I trust that there's a reason that sound vibration is coming forward as we step into the space together. At the same time, the sun is pouring in through the windows. It is this gorgeous, bright, beautiful blue sky day. Crisp and cold, but just like alive with color. So, here we are. The day after elections, I am grateful to live in a country where we can peacefully elect new people to power. We can peacefully release those who have given us their time and their service from their power. And we can gracefully adjust the direction that our country is headed. It is, as the sirens go off in the background, it is a privilege to live in a democracy and to be able to express our voice. And that is what I feel the most today, is just such gratitude that my voice counts. Every other individual who is registered to vote and exercises the right to vote, that their voice counts also. Yeah, so a moment of just pure gratitude for the process that we completed and the peace that exists on the other side of the process, even if we're not all happy with exactly how everything turned out. It is a peaceful country. Yeah, I feel like many of us have been holding our breath a little as we move through the elections, and so perhaps we just begin today by exhaling for all of those who work so passionately and with such deep commitment and loyalty to their parties and to their representatives that they are advocating for, and to the election process as a whole. Oh, right? Big sigh. You did it. You walked us through to the other side of this process, and we honor the time, the effort, the love that you have poured into this democracy. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. What is today? The 7th. The 7th of November, a Wednesday, a hump day. It is also a new moon in Scorpio. And the only title that felt appropriate for today's podcast is New Moon Magik. Magic with a K, not a C, because Scorpio definitely feels like the energy of a little bit of witchiness, or going into the underworld, into the darkness to discover whatever it is that needs to be released, or as some would say, whatever needs to die in order for something new to be rebirthed. There is a letting go that happens in this sign of Scorpio, while there's the choice to let go. And then in that space of surrendering and letting go, we create something new. I absolutely believe in divine timing, and it feels like no coincidence that perfect timing, perfect alignment, that we had an election process that had the energy of this new moon in Scorpio so powerfully being felt. It is a time of transformation in our country, in our world, collectively within humanity. And we are all being offered the opportunity to let go of the gunk, to let go of the stuff that has held us back, or the self-limitations and restrictions that we put on our own journey, the judgments that we heap upon ourselves as we show up in our lives. I often feel like the inner voice is the most critical voice we hear in our lifetime. The ways that we berate ourselves and evaluate ourselves and then throw ourselves repeatedly to the ground and stomp on ourselves. Those inner voices are just so mean often. And so perhaps that's one of the shifts that is possible at this new moon in Scorpio. Perhaps we let go of that inner critic. Kill off the inner critic. My husband and I watched a movie last night on Netflix, and it was about this mother and son, and they're both authors, and she keeps holding this idea over his head that there's this ending she has for this book he's writing, and it's the best ending, but she won't tell him what it is. And so finally, at the end of the movie, he says, "Can you please tell me what this ending is?" And she says, "Yeah, the main character dies. It's a terrible ending." And I feel that for all of us, like, what a terrible ending to kill off the inner critic. Like, then what? Then who will judge us? Then who will tell us that we're wrong or not meeting our own goals, our own expectations? Who will criticize us if we kill off the inner critic? And yet, can you imagine the freedom of your mind if you weren't always criticizing yourself? Maybe I'm just speaking to myself. Maybe none of you do this, but from what I've seen in my work, from what I see over and over in sessions, is that we are usually much, much tougher on ourselves than those around us. I mean, there are exceptions to that, but most of us are pretty harsh if we were to express our thoughts out loud to others as we do to ourselves. We're much harsher on ourselves, and feel the possibility of not having that track run in your mind all the time, of having a quiet or a spaciousness in the mind instead of that repetitive loop of never measuring up. What if all of your energy isn't circling and cycling and repeating gunk? Can you imagine how much more creative you would be? How much more, what's the word? Impulsive or impetuous. You wouldn't be limiting. It's like when I studied management in college, one of the techniques we talked about was just brainstorming or popcorning ideas, and you would just put everything that came up on a big sheet of paper within the group, and you wouldn't eliminate any idea as bad. There was no judgment, no evaluation. You would just throw these ideas up on the wall, and everyone would write their ideas down, whatever the topic was we were exploring. And in that space of such freedom, it was amazing what ideas would come up. I mean, things that I would think were crazy, but someone else would say, and I was like, I never would have thought of that. When there's spaciousness within that container, and you know you're not going to be evaluated for whatever you create or think, or whatever random idea moves through your mind, it's liberating, and new ideas come through that perhaps couldn't have before if there had been this squishing of the ideas. Imagine if your mind constantly had that much freedom, that much spaciousness, and your energy wasn't being invested in squishing or pushing down every single thing that you come up with. The word I get is like poo-poo. You're not going to poo-poo all the ideas. You're just going to allow them to flow. Doesn't mean you act on all the ideas. Doesn't mean you take off down some crazy path. It means that you allow your mind to step into a zone of creativity instead of limiting it in this space of judgment. And if your energy is feeding creativity, there's going to be more momentum put into actually creating something from that flow of energy. And so instead of criticizing ourselves for the idea that we think we could be an author, or we think we could be an artist, or we think we could do any of those things, instead of limiting ourselves, the energy is coming underneath that idea and lifting it up. And then suddenly we find ourselves sketching. We find ourselves singing. We find ourselves telling stories, and then maybe recording a story or writing a blog. The energy that goes underneath us lifts us up and creates something that didn't exist before. This is why I love meditation. It's because meditation helps me move all that judgment out. It quiets down my crazy voice. It quiets down the part of me that's like, you could never do that. And it allows space for my soul to dance and sing and play in the safe container of meditation. And from there, the most beautiful things unfold. So here, as we sit in the energy of the new moon in Scorpio, which is about transformation, it's about going into the shadowy, dark places within ourselves, within our relationships, within our past, within our future. Going into, right, the parts that we don't always want to look at or be with. When we do that and we just expand, add some spaciousness, bring in some breathing room into those places, we find that the vibration shifts, the possibilities shift. It's this idea, this image I always share when I have our new moon circles. The new moon is this night that looks really dark. The sky is black because there's no moon being reflected, no sunlight being reflected from the moon to earth. So it looks really dark. But if you sit in that darkness and you look at the sky without any other light interfering from the house or the cars or the street lights, if you just look at the sky and the clouds have been moved to the side, you see billions of stars. The sky is filled with light. Those are all of the possibilities that exist for us in that space of darkness, in that space of the unknown, in that dark night that is not lit up. There is so much light, just different than what we expected it to look like. So, new moon magic. Sit, look at the sky. Open up the possibilities. Be in the darkness and breathe through it, and then see what light is underneath that. And then who knows? Who knows what you can create from there. The new moon for me is always a time of intention setting. Whether you do it tonight or in a couple nights, the energy is, the possibilities exist. So where do you want to direct your focus? Which direction do you want to move in? Because if you look at the sky and there's billions of stars, you could just ping pong around all of those stars and have a party, have a great time, but not feel like you're fulfilling this creative flow that has permission to move through us. So when we imagine seeing all these millions of stars and we become intentional, we pick one star or we pick one constellation, we create a new grid, we create a new pathway. We get really focused on what is it we want to move towards? Which direction do I most want to go in? What is that creative spark in me that most wants to be expressed? Because there will always be one that rises to the surface when you sit in quiet space. Always. There will be one that it comes up. And you're like, that's all you can think about. It's all you can focus on. It's all you can dream about. Your body is like pushing you in that direction towards that one thing. Align with that energy. Be intentional. At this new moon that offers us such possibility for transformation, be intentional and allow yourself to step into the current that is going to flow you in the direction you're looking at, the specific direction you're looking in. You're going to align with that flow of energy and move towards that. And then watch the magic. Experience the magic. Delight in the magic. Exhale, breathe, play in the magic of this new moon. Thank you for tuning in to today's vibration. Let's take this message of pure love out into all of our communities and continue expanding love here on Gaia. So much love from my heart to yours.